The panicked message rippled through every known hyperlane. A supermassive warship of human origin had shredded the bounds of interstellar space, barreling directly for the galactic core. Nobody ever took humanity seriously until now. As gobsmacked alien overlords scrambled to contain the chaos, the entire galaxy held its breath, bracing for whatever the vessel might do next. For millennia, the cosmic stage belonged to ancient alien empires, sustained by millennia of culture and technology that saw them vigorous sweeping the void. The Visan hierarchy boasted a bloodline that reached back thousands of years, while the Garan Dominion governed their systems of stars through iron-fisted militaristic discipline. In between were other species and coalitions, all interlinked by a fragile network of treaties designed to reduce overt war. Himself, by the service, was a relatively little newer entry in this actual enormous theater. To the outside world, many alien powers barely recognized the existence of Earth, deeming humans second-rate explorers who skulked in the periphery of the galaxy. They were occasionally invited to minor trade summits or peripheral diplomatic gatherings, but the major players rarely treated them with any real respect. When speculation arose that humans were developing advanced weapons in secret, the galaxy ignored the idea as human pretentiousness. Still, whispers persisted. Terran emissaries occasionally had an air of quiet confidence that hinted of much more than what was visible. Merchant captains regaled them with stories of powerful Earth-built engines stowed away in unregistered cargo vessels, far surpassing the rickety ships that had first launched humans into the stars. Slowly, those threads of speculation knitted themselves into a background tapestry of rumors. But there was no definitive proof until the day the broadcast came. A garbled transmission from a Garan observation post close to the Cashin Nebula triggered a panic cascade. The station had received a signal of a massive energy reading, larger than anything it had recorded, emerging from hyperspace. Fleet intelligence had described it as an unidentified Earth craft, but no official human channels verified that any such vessel even existed. Still, the power signature loomed large on every sensor array in the sector. When Luzar received the data as the Garan admiral, his reptilian eyes flared wide in an unusual display of shock. If the readings were real, the Terrans had made a capital ship to rival the largest dreadnoughts in the known galaxy. Word spread rapidly. The calm poise of the Visan hierarchy's courtiers crumbled as they scrambled for answers. Earth's early pursuit of interstellar travel had once been a subject of polite amusement for the Visans, who could not believe humans could accomplish anything beyond menial success. They had never regarded them as innovators on a grand scale, certainly not of the sort that could construct a warship able to attract the attention of more than one space-faring civilization. Within days, the great powers convened emergency meetings. Diplomats who had once left human affairs to the subcommittees now met to share intelligence. Emissaries from the Orion Alliance, a loose grouping of worlds trying to keep the peace, attempted to mediate calm, imploring all to wait for an official statement from Earth. But Earth offered nothing. Their official channels went silent, neither denying nor confirming the ship's existence. And in the dark corners of secret alien spaces, a hushed silence reigned. Mired in the galactic underbelly, a character named Vikros the Shade, an information peddler said to traffic in stolen codes and infiltration plots, passed along alluring scraps of data. These scraps formed a disquieting picture. A warship named Aegis Ascendant, said to be equipped with newly engineered quantum lattice armor and a propulsion system capable of making accelerated hyperspace transitions over long-range distances. If such a technology did exist, it would provide humanity with an upper hand that few empires could rival. Nervous speculation turned into a cyclone of anxiety. The Garan Dominion, always the galactic apex predator, sent out its fleet reconnaissance to intercept the human behemoth. The Visan hierarchy called for an emergency council meeting to evaluate the threat. Even smaller nations like the feline-ruled Feeler Republic appeared disconcerted, because if the humans had pulled off building a ship large enough to challenge the status quo, then the entire balance of power was in jeopardy. Amidst all this chaos, some key figures stepped up as the would-be protagonists of pulling back the curtains of truth. The other was diplomat Saria Lequin of the Orion Alliance, a seasoned negotiator known for her ability to find common ground between warring empires. Having never encountered humans more closely than a distant view of their empires or digitally mined history, however, she suspected that the arrival of this warship might mark either the demise of Earth or their rise to intergalactic fame. The other was Garan Admiral Lazar himself, whose empire was infamous for punishing any species that threatened its rule. It left him with the troubling idea that if Earth did have a dreadnought, and it was superior to his fleet, then the Dominion was no longer the most powerful force in the galaxy. Meanwhile, in far-flung sections of space, the Terran Confederacy silently watched the galaxy's response. For centuries, humanity's leaders had felt slighted, forced to trade at subpar terms and watch as their would-be allies signed on as subjects to more potent patrons. In dire internal conversations, Earth's high command calculated just when to make their presence known. They called their new flagship the Aegis Ascendant, the herald of a new age, as well as a preserve of decades of clandestine study. Its release was no reckless act, but rather an act of planning meant to compel the galaxy to reconsider humanity's standing. It echoed across star systems. Was the rumored supership a bluff, or was it the real deal with the power to topple a centuries-old institutional monopoly? Alien leaders met in hush-hush meetings, one by one. Surveillance drones were sent, spies bribed to deliver bigger leaks. There was mention of Aegis Ascendant among data packets scavenged from black market deals. No longer was the question whether the Terrans had constructed a titanic work, but the reason why. Were they trying to avenge past humiliations, or was this a last-ditch deterrent effort? Now, as every intelligence community on the planet was on high alert, foreboding hung in the air. Tensions mounted. Admirals prepared for the worst, while diplomats prayed for the best. After centuries of obscuring the Earth, however, the galaxy found itself perhaps on the verge of cosmic redefinition. If the initial reports were even half accurate, the Terrans had done what no one else had. A starship that dwarfed the core carriers and promised deadly innovations in offensive and defensive systems alike. Hardly anyone doubted that war was in the offing, but a thread of ambiguity lurked beneath every council discussion. Could this one event be the catalyst for an unprecedented alliance, or the beginning of the deadliest arms race in living history? All of them knew, if the Aegis Ascendant revealed itself officially, there would be no turning back. A new truth would arrive in the galaxy, that these thundering human machines could traverse the void. The chain reaction started when the Aegis Ascendant became visibly spotted along a neutral trade route at the outskirts of the Lycoris Cloud. Under Admiral Lazar's orders, Garan Dominion scouts were deployed to set the forward blockade intercepting the Terran dreadnought. These blockades had typically been employed in repelling pirate raiders or harrying the smaller fleets of the Dominion's adversaries. Against the potential leviathan of a new human warship, the blockade was a bluff. Maybe they could cripple the Terran craft or at least get a sense of its capabilities. Conventional tactics were not going to cut it, though, as the Aegis Ascendant blustered out through a swirl of jump-drive afterglow. The Garan vessels discharged warning shots, ceremonial bolts of plasma designed to compel a target to stop. The Aegis Ascendant's hull shimmered with an energy field that absorbed the blasts without visible harm in response. Admiral Lazar watched as multiple sensor arrays on the Garan bridge confirmed the same reading. The Terran vessel's shield signature was unlike anything he was used to reading. It took the Aegis Ascendant mere minutes to retaliate. Two of the Garan cruisers never even got a chance to maneuver before precise beams of kinetic laser hybrids lanced across the void and disabled them. The beams ripped through their shields like they were made of paper, leaving both vessels drifting and venting atmosphere. The others in Lazar's blockade squadron misled themselves, unsure whether to regroup or run. It was clear immediately that the Terrans had developed advanced offensive tech. Aegis Ascendant was a name that flew between the Dominion's emergency bands, a whispering harbinger of threnody. This quick dust-up caught the galaxy's eye. The Visan hierarchy answered by clandestinely deploying infiltration teams, operatives fitted with neural implants and cloaked in suits. Their objective was to infiltrate the Terran ship, or at the very least, gather enough data on its technology to reverse engineer it. In the meantime, Smaller powers like the Feeler Republic were weighing the merits of hasty alliances with Earth in hopes of either currying favor or seeking protection against the Garan Dominion, which had long set predatory sights on Feeler territory. The diplomat Saria Lequin of the Orion Alliance had been buried in requests for mediation, but also in secret requests for information. The panic extended beyond the great empires. Industrial interests, black market suppliers, and frontier colonies all wanted a leg up in knowing, or perhaps duplicating, the Aegis Ascendant's superior weapons. That it had quantum lattice armor, as the rumor went, had every arms trader in the quadrant hungry for a piece of that data. In the face of these shifting tides, the Terran Confederacy remained mostly quiet. They made no public statements and did not respond to alliances or threats. The sole official communication had been navigational advisories indicating the Aegis Ascendant would be passing through various sectors and anticipated safe passage. The unstated message was brazen. We will go as we wish, and you will not stop us. For the many alien powers that had long considered Earth an afterthought, this new position was shocking. The Garan Dominion did not wait to make the next move. Stung by the humiliation at Lycoris Cloud, Admiral Lazar appealed to his superiors to assemble a major strike group to envelop the human warship. Centuries of pride pushed the Dominion to believe that it is still the top force in the galaxy. And if that claim was threatened by a dreadnought the Terrans had built, the Dominion intended to crush it, speeding and decisively. An impressive battle fleet, battleships, destroyers, and several fighter wings lay in wait for the Aegis Ascendant deployed near the Racalan Verge. In Dominion country, there were some doubts. Some few Garan captains who had survived the debacle with the blockade testified to the terrifying might of their Terran counterpart. But a Dominion Hawk-in-Chief silenced any objections, demanding that, with numbers like these, they would go through any shield and outflank any weapon. Confidence, some would say arrogance, prevailed. Inspired by the rumors of the pending engagement passed through spy networks, chaos spread through neighboring systems. The Feeler Republic prepared for possible spillover, having deployed its own defense ships to positions where they could defend its colonies on the border. The Visan hierarchy, knowing that open war of this scale could threaten trade routes, pressed diplomat Saria Lequin to negotiate a ceasefire. Lequin's hands were tied. Having any deal to broker required Terran's cooperation, and Terrans weren't giving any indication of what their intentions might be. Traversing this storm, the infiltration teams of the Visan hierarchy performed an audacious maneuver. They had got aboard small stealth frigates and crept over the Racalan Verge. The plan: if a major battle was about to happen, they would take advantage of the chaos to get close to the Aegis Ascendant without being detected, collect data, or they would vanish before anyone realized. If they could derail an important node, or emulate a wedge of Terran tech, even better. But as the Visan operatives moved closer toward the Terran warship's amp perimeter, they encountered anti-stealth measures they had never even trained for. Automated drones flew wide patrol patterns around the Aegis Ascendant, their scanning frequencies penetrating even standard cloaking fields. The activation of precise tractor beams took half the Visan infiltration vessels within minutes, efficiently bringing them into a state of instant dormancy. The survivors withdrew, bruised and in shock. Word of Terran counter-intel systems spread like wildfire. This was not just another indication that Earth's technology may be even more advanced than had been rumored. Anxiety levels skyrocketed throughout the galaxy. Even Admiral Lazar had started to have second thoughts about his plan, but not enough to cancel it. With growing political pressure inside the Dominion, he decided to follow through on the ambush. He planned the final showdown in what he thought was the Aegis Ascendant's flight path through a narrow subspace corridor. On the appointed day, his fleet waited on the outside, plasma batteries charged, fighter wings out. Ghosts of sensors hinted at the Terran warship drawing nearer, and they watched with rapt attention. The idea was to go first, launching a volley so destructive that not even the purported quantum lattice shield would be able to cope. Fighter wings swarming the vessel and hammering the armor wherever they see it weak. But the Aegis Ascendant never left the corridor. Instead, it came from a wholly different vector, having made a much more accurate jump, avoiding the Dominion's pincer. Surprised, the Garan capital ships fought to reform their formation. The Aegis Ascendant opened up in a deliberate, surgical barrage that ripped through the Dominion's flank. The result was not a pitched, evenly matched battle, but a slaughter. The flagship of the Dominion was outclassed, sent to the ground by ballistic beams that ate through its shields in an instant. Admiral Lazar had frantically transmitted orders to his subcommanders, but the Dominion's chain of command was being disrupted by the Terrans' electronic warfare. Watching from an overwatch, the allies of diplomat Lequin observed in awe that the Aegis Ascendant had so clearly controlled the engagement. Every shot from the warship felt laser-focused for maximum devastation, a next-gen AI predicting each movement of the enemy. By the time the Dominion's ransacked forces tried to coordinate a counterattack, they were already vanquished. The results of this conflict could not be concealed. Now, no amount of diplomatic dirt burying and revision could keep word of their overwhelming defeat from reaching every corner of the galaxy. Even those who carried doubts about humanity had to admit that, uncomfortable as it was, the Terrans had reached a level of technological development that few, if anyone at all, could match. Now, the galactic stage stood at the precipice of world-altering reconfigurations. But some of the powers sought to establish diplomatic channels with the Terrans and gain an alliance with the unstoppable newcomer. Others, shamed and chewed up, hatched schemes of sabotage and coalition combat. Through all this, the Aegis Ascendant pressed ahead, an unwavering harbinger of humanity's rise. It all really started to happen in the outskirt of the Visan hierarchy, around the legendary Katina Belt, a region where people build colonies on drifting asteroids and enjoy the bounty of the innumerable mineral riches. There, the beleaguered Garan Dominion made a final bid to unite against the Terran menace, forming a fragile alliance with smaller warlike factions. As much as they loathed one another, the eclipsing threat of the Aegis Ascendant forced them to work together, if only to see a way out of this all-consuming nightmare. Great convoys swarmed towards the Katina Belt, transporting war machines and legions from across the galaxy. The peaceful asteroid colonies became heavily armed fortified stations. Yet even this display of unity seemed precarious. Old rivalries simmered under the surface as each ally feared that another would stab it in the back at the first glimmer of an opportunity. The question was, could a coalition hastily formed out of mutual distrust work to possibly counter the indomitable warship that humanity had wrought? In the midst of these preparations, the Orion Alliance renewed its efforts at diplomacy. The diplomat Saria Lequin darted between the novel coalition headquarters and its encrypted channels said to connect to Terran command. She pleaded for negotiations, arguing that open warfare with a united alien force could spiral to hellacious levels. But the Terran Confederacy was oddly mum. Every so often, Saria got mysterious messages saying that the Aegis Ascendant was willing to parley, but no official Terran envoy made the trip. The deadlock shattered when Terran Admiral Jennifer Isaac, commanding officer of the Aegis Ascendant, floated a solitary message to all great empires. We do not want galactic supremacy, but we will not be subjugated. If your coalition obstructs us, we will act accordingly. Schlahat. We invite all please dialogue at Katina Belt. We come powerful, but we come with an open hand. This comment sparked heated discussion among the leaders of the alliance. Others insisted it was a trap, just another ruse to lull them into complacency. Others viewed it as a genuine chance to avoid annihilation. Eventually, under heavy pressure, they humbled themselves to host an unprecedented summit on the largest station in the belt, the Helios Spire. Guards from either faction ringed the station's perimeter, preventing a single group from taking control unimpeded. All participants, nervous and uncertain, waited for the Terrans to arrive. When Aegis Ascendant finally arrived, it did so in a way just as grand as the rumors suggested. Scoring a unanimous landing in the belt outside set its hull against endless expanse of rock, canceled out the vision of entire asteroids and coal from the Milky Way. A ship extensible beyond the stomach of man's taste. Fleets rushed into defensive formations, but no shots were fired. Admiral Isaac dispatched a shuttle to the Helios Spire, accompanied by a small delegation of several Terran Marines and diplomats. All sensors in the system zeroed in on that shuttle, half expecting an ambush. But the Terrans touched down without incident, their bearing placid. During the summit, the tension was inescapable. Garan Dominion representatives, still smarting from past losses, glowered behind thick, tinted visors. The Visan delegates, more self-possessed, viewed the Terrans with a sort of fascination, unsure if they should consider them potential allies or existential threats. Smaller factions, such as the Feeler Republic and the Cordith Hegemony, swarmed near Saria Lequin, looking to her to be able to negotiate some form of stable arrangement. Admiral Isaac was direct. Earth wanted an end to centuries of condescending and predatory treatment that had stifled its development within the galactic community. The Aegis Ascendant was not a weapon of conquest, she told them, but a diplomatic lever guaranteeing that no one would be able to bully or belittle humanity ever again. Her words fell on mixed ears. Some heard them as a rightful stand against oppression, while others viewed them as a new kind of intimidation. For a brief while, it appeared that a peaceful settlement might be achievable. Then, sensors on the far side of the Katina belt picked up a burst of energy. Urgent warnings flashed on the station's monitors. A runaway battle group, allegedly an ultranationalist Garan splinter group, was out of the main battle formation. And inclined to annihilate the Aegis Ascendant, they directed a volley of missiles, plasma beams, and railgun slugs against where the Terran dreadnought's position had been. The weaponry flew toward the Aegis Ascendant with horrible speed. As Terrans sprang to action, all diplomatic processes ground to a halt. Although the dreadnought's shield system activated in an instant, bulk of the fire rained around the perimeter, sending shockwaves rippling through the belt. The station itself roiled under the onslaught, sending representatives from each of the factions to scatter for cover. Within seconds, Admiral Isaac reacted, pivots. She issued an order for a defensive volley from the Aegis Ascendant's automated turrets to neutralize the incoming ordnance. Pursue in the darkness with streams of precision intercept lasers and flak bursts detonating its missiles and scattering its rail slugs before they entered critical range. But the motherfuckers, the rogue battle group, they continued to fight, throwing everything they had at the Terran warship, trying to force the breach. Within Heliospire, the delegates tossed aside the summit's formalities and were overtaken with panic. Debris from exploding projectiles rained on the station's shield bubble, and there were rumors that the Garan Dominion was going to take advantage of the chaos to stage a coup. Saria Lequin, trembling with fear, tried to rally the delegates by getting them to resume negotiations after the crisis ended. But as enemy fire poured down without end, the tension had broken. The illusions of unity began to vanish. Isaac ordered a retaliatory strike from the Aegis Ascendant. Autonomous targeting solutions found the command ship of the rogue battle group. Together, the ship's advanced cannons blasted out searing beams of hybrid energy. The cruiser's lead split in a shower of molten hull. Others wavered, losing formation. And as their lines broke, the Terran dreadnought disabled or destroyed each enemy vessel in turn. Within minutes, the threat was over, a few silent hulks drifting among the asteroids. If there had been any question regarding the Aegis Ascendant's combat capabilities, however, it was dispelled then. What was more surprising was the surgical strike. The Terran warship did very little collateral damage to the station or other fleets. They had responded to their assailants with deadly precision while leaving the door open for further negotiations. All of a sudden, that was flipped. As watched their own rogue underlings dispatched with effortless ease, the coalition's largest factions recognized the Terran vessel could do the same to them. With the most immediate threat neutralized, Admiral Isaac opened communications again. Her message was clear, but not the condescension some had anticipated. If more bloodshed came, the Terrans would reply in kind. Otherwise, they were open to creating a new galactic order, one in which humankind would play an equal role. Taking the opportunity, diplomat Saria Lequin begged the assembled factions to make sense. Cautiously, the Visan envoys agreed, both in awe of the warship's restraint and its unmatched firepower. There was no formal treaty signed that day, but an unspoken, tenuous truce fell across the Katina belt. Suddenly, the Garan Dominion was in a humiliating moral quandary: resist to the very end and await complete destruction, or accept a reluctant peace. Smaller powers rushed to suggest trade deals with Earth, hoping to endear themselves to the new, unstoppable power. The Visans, those upwardly mobile masters of understatement, spoke of exchanging technology behind closed doors while keeping watchful eyes on each other. What could be gleaned from the visual feeds during the Katina Belt standoff made it clear that the Aegis Ascendant, in one fell swoop, had seized the advantage across the galaxy. Despite the lack of a formal proclamation of rulership by the Terrans, their display of force rendered them a power that no empire could afford to ignore. The coalition of fear, as the alliance of the Garan Dominion and the rest was unofficially known, imploded within weeks as they failed to hide their internal divisions and the futility of resisting the power of Earth. An uneasy peace prevailed now. For the first time in a generation, the dynamic of power did not center on ancient empires maneuvering for advantage. Instead, the galaxy turned to Earth, half fearful, half in wonder. Where the Terrans exercised the power they had snatched from others would determine the fate of trillions. In the weeks after the Katina Belt confrontation, the shockwave of humanity's rise swept through every known star system. The implications of a Terran dreadnought to end all dreadnoughts and a fleet that rivaled the greatest armadas of galactic history stunned diplomats, admirals, and entire populations alike. While the universal dread had not completely faded, it intermingled, now, with a tentative hope that maybe there was a different way, with Terrans either leading or cooperating for the galaxy. Worlds that had once scoffed at humanity began sending diplomats to Earth, offering treaties and scientific exchanges. Those gestures, however motivated by self-preservation, signaled a radical change. That marginality was reversed, and where humans had been on the outer perimeter, they now had a seat at the table in interstellar negotiations. The Terran Confederacy itself struggled under the burden of this new responsibility, wanting to form alliances freely or to break free from bonds and create their own future free of political entanglements. In the meantime, tales of the mighty Aegis Ascendant and its formidable technology spread outwards through comms nets. Children on planets far afield told stories of an invincible Earth warship arriving out of the nowhere to end oppression. On other worlds, graffiti showed a silhouette of the dreadnought accompanied by slogans extolling human ingenuity. In contrast, out of more fearful worlds rose preachers who said that as Earth ascended, it would bring a new tyranny, an echo of the same oppression that humans had once faced themselves. In the ranks of the Terran fleet, Admiral Jennifer Isaac and her crew were regarded as living legends. Their response in the Katina Belt crisis, and the surgical way they had removed hostile forces, had saved innumerable lives, proved that Earth wasn't just a strutting upstart. With careful consideration, the Aegis Ascendant was seen as a force for balance, ensuring history did not repeat itself where every enemy had to mirror the hatred of a human oppressor. For Saria Lequin, a diplomat, the end of fighting was relief and a new chapter, and she had made it her personal mission to open up lines of communication between Earth and its former alien skeptics. In her messages, she stressed that the Terrans were not to be considered conquerors, despite their impressive technology. Skeptics remained, of course, especially among factions that had watched their fleets disassembled in minutes at the warship's hands. But hope remained, however faint, supported by the prospect of a galaxy united under a fairer regime. The Garan Dominion tended its wounds in private, unsure of whether to reconstruct its military or to pursue a face-saving reconciliation. The Visan hierarchy, for its part, discreetly lobbied for joint research projects that could benefit from Terran breakthroughs in quantum lattice engineering. Smaller countries hedged their bets, making deals on both sides. Through it all, the Aegis Ascendant kept the roving patrols they had started with, keeping the local sectors stable from once rampant piracy and exploitation. No one could know if permanent peace really was at hand. Wars had been waged for far less, and the sudden transfer of power could start new rivalries any time now. But the rise of Earth gave a rare opportunity for change. Many historians would later note the initial detection of the great mass of a ship within Ran as the first day of a new epoch, the day the galaxy realized the most underappreciated race was standing up tall when motivated by invention, motivation, and the uncompromising desire to be free. In the weave of this cosmic narrative, the Terrans had etched themselves a place of significance, no longer passive observers, but active constructors of their destiny. Whether this future would be shaped by cooperation or conflict was the open question. But one fact was incontrovertible. The galaxy could never again ignore humanity. Aegis Ascendant, a symbol of Earth's extraordinary journey, had heralded an age where all the stars held their breath, awaiting the next chapter in humanity.